Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each time on the Dr. Diane Show, we will have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. I'm excited to welcome to my show today Jane Grant. She is a registered dietitian since 2005. She's been trained in integrative and functional nutrition to address the root cause of disease and help promote optimal health. Jane is committed to improving the quality of life of others by sharing her nutrition expertise and knowledge. Many people have an idea of what to do in order to be healthy, but need help achieving those goals. She empowers clients to achieve personal balance and wellness for a lifetime with knowledge, motivation, and practical tools. Her area of expertise includes adult weight management, diabetes prevention and management, food allergies and sensitivities, heart disease prevention, and gastrointestinal issues. Jane is also a certified Reiki healer to assist in stress reduction and relaxation. Outside of work, she spends her time traveling, hiking, exploring different cuisines, cooking, gardening, and spending time with family and friends. And she is the founder of Grant's Nutrition and Wellness, located in Berlin, Connecticut. So welcome, Jane. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about some exciting stuff today. One thing that probably everyone wants to know, the perfect treatment for removing fat permanently while gaining muscle. So I'm just teasing people right now, because before we get to that, I want people to learn a little bit more about you, your background, why you decided to go into the field of nutrition, and what really inspired you to open this kind of a practice.
So I would have to say my interest in nutrition started back from childhood. Growing up during that era, I was always overweight. And so I was always looking for different ways on how to lose weight. So I was always looking into things, talking to people, trying different ways. And I struggled with it for, I want to say that my entire childhood, teenage years. Then after high school, I had gotten married right away and started a family right away. So with my children, I was, very interested in nutrition. I wanted to make sure that, they had well-balanced diets, just so they could grow and be as healthy as possible. So through all that, then my marriage actually ended early. So I knew that I needed to develop a career. And when I was doing some soul searching, the one thing that kept on coming up was I have this passion for nutrition. I'm always looking into things, if it's for myself, if it's for my children. So I decided to enroll at Briarwood College. They're no longer here right now, but at that time it was a 2-year college, and I was studying dietetics. I was in the dietetic technician program, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. So from there, I transferred. Once I graduated, I had transferred all of my credits over to St. Joseph College and enrolled in their dietetic program to become a dietitian. So my whole experience with it just has been everything that I was looking for, and I just wanted to know more. So this way I could, offer the information to other people the information that I had learned, just because I know, from my past experience, just trying to figure out different things, it was hard, and I didn't have a professional to talk to, and I wanted to eliminate that for others.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I mean, so many practitioners that I talk to, that's their story. Basically, they struggled with something in their
Mhm.
lifetime, and it kind of was impactful enough that it drove them to become so passionate about it. It's what they decided they wanted to do with their, with their career and with their life. But who better than to do what you do because you've lived it essentially. And also now you have all of the, knowledge and education and certifications and all of that. And nutrition is tricky because I think there's so much misinformation out there that, every time you turn around, there's a new diet out, there's a new book, there's something, and people just go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, trying to figure out, sometimes looking for a quick fix, but trying to figure out what's going to work for them. So I love what you do. And I think, we need more of people like you just to help with getting the right education out there.
I agree completely. And, you know, in one diet or one technique may work for one person, but it doesn't work for everyone. And that's why it's very confusing. Um, we're all made up different. And understanding that is really essential to be able to help someone. One of the things that we did get involved with was genetic testing, just because some people would respond to certain diets or even certain supplements to help with their weight loss, where the others didn't. So with the 3x4 genetics testing that we are doing now, we're actually able to see, what from a genetic level, what may be preventing someone from losing weight, what kind of a diet would work best for them. So since we, dove into more of like innovative approaches, we've actually been able to help people even further.
Yeah, I love that because that hits the nail on the head, right? It is an individualized approach. And I've seen so many people. I mean, my background is exercise physiology and nutrition, and I've worked with people for, with weight loss for many years. And it was always fascinating to me, you could put two people on the exact same program and one person would do amazing and one person would fail miserably. And it was, sometimes, yes, it was due to someone's mindset and whether or not they were motivated or ready. But a lot of times it was just like you couldn't, everything was the same, like you controlled for everything. And still you had one person get great results and one person not. And back in I'm talking about going back to like the 90s when we didn't really have a lot of genetic, I don't even know if we had genetic testing at all, but you wondered, why is it that, some people do so well, some people do so, awful. And now we're seeing, well, obviously we're all individuals. We all have unique, genetic makeups. We respond differently to different foods. Some people have food sensitivities, which you also test for. And I think that's a huge thing as far as weight loss as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, because even like the food sensitivities, sometimes something as small as that can actually prevent a person from losing weight. Because when we're inflamed, inflammation for certain people, it will prevent them from losing weight, or it will provide health challenges for them, where other people, maybe they'll have some sensitivities, but it doesn't prevent them from getting the health goals that they are trying to achieve.
Yeah, so let's talk about this for a second because I don't want people to confuse this with food allergies. So when we talk about food sensitivities, we're not talking about like someone who has a peanut allergy who's going to go into anaphylactic shock or anything like that. So explain to us what do food sensitivities mean and what does that include?
Right. So a food sensitivity, it can react a lot like an allergy, but it's not an allergy. So for some people, They could get chronic headaches, a lot of muscle pain, aches and pains, in their joints, digestive issues. A lot of people with food sensitivities, sometimes, they'll have these digestive issues and they will go to their physicians, they will go to their gastroenterologist, and they'll have all these tests done, and everything keeps on coming back normal. They can't find anything. So then they'll come to me and we will do like a food sensitivity test, and we'll find that they're sensitive to certain foods, and then they will eliminate it from their diet, and suddenly all these symptoms are slowly starting to go away. So a food sensitivity versus an allergy, the sensitivities can present itself as an allergy, but you'll never go into an anaphylactic shock. It won't actually kill you where an allergy will, but the symptoms can be quite life-altering.
Right, exactly. I can speak from experience on that one. And I kind of figure, I've been in the world of natural medicine for years, so I know what food sensitivities were. So I kind of figured this out, but I'm kind of a creature of habit with my diet a little bit, meaning, I tend to get into a routine, and if it's easy and I know what all my macros are, I'll sort of fall into this eating the same thing for a while. So I was having protein shakes for my breakfast for I don't know how long, God, probably years, with whey protein, no problems ever. And then all of a sudden I started noticing within maybe sometimes as quickly as 10 or 15 minutes, or maybe it might be a couple of hours. I was having gastrointestinal issues where nothing severe, but it was like a little bit uncomfortable, and, sometimes mild diarrhea or things like that. I'm like, okay, something's going on. So I went and had a food sensitivity test done. And of course, it came back that I had an allergy to whey, but then some other things came back that I thought were really interesting. Like I had a sensitivity to, I shouldn't use the word allergy. It's a sensitivity to whey, a sensitivity to basil, mushrooms, corn, and I forget, there was like a couple of other things, but it was enlightening to me because like I hadn't had any physical symptoms when I ate any of those other things, but for whatever reason, I had developed a sensitivity to it. So you want to know that information, right?
Yes, absolutely. And what could have happened too is, so like with the whey, you could have had the sensitivity for some time, and over time you were starting to develop the symptoms. And because you had it for some time, what could have happened is it could have caused leaky gut. And leaky gut is when we have a food sensitivity and we keep on including that particular food in our diet, it thins out the mucosal layer in our intestines, and it causes these tiny little pinholes where when we eat something and it's digested, it sort of finds its way out into these little pinholes. And as a result, the body will send antibodies to get rid of it because it's in a place where it's not supposed to. So let's say the first time it happens, the body will produce one antibody and it gets rid of it. And then you eat that food again, and now the body's like, okay, we thought we got rid of you. So now the second time, let's say hypothetically, it sends 3 antibodies. So the more you're eating it, the more the body is trying to clear it out, to the point now we're starting to feel the symptoms. And the more that we continue to eat the foods that are causing these sensitivities, it continues to thin out the mucosal layer in our intestines, and more food sensitivities keep on developing. So it's really crucial to find out what we're sensitive to in the very beginning to prevent additional food sensitivities to come into play.
That's fascinating, because I didn't even know that, actually, how one could lead to, more and more and more. I understand that, you want to eliminate it. And I did do that. And I've been off of whey protein. I switched to egg protein probably like over a year ago. And I have no issues with that. And I've also been better about changing my diet, because I think that's something that happens too. It's like you keep eating the same thing over and over and over again. You're not always going to develop a sensitivity to it, but you can. And also I think that over time, you may be able to introduce some of these foods back into your diet, but you have to kind of do it gradually and or eliminate other things that might have caused sensitivity. So you can tell, okay, is this still bothering me? And some people may never be able to eat that food again. And other people may be able to, to introduce it back into their diet and be perfectly fine with it. So I think this is fascinating. We're going to get into a lot more nutrition information and talking about fat loss and weight loss. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll explore more with Jane Grant, founder of Grant's Nutrition and Wellness in Berlin, Connecticut. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or at either of my two publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And more info on Jane Grant at www.grantsnutrition.com. So we were talking before the break about food sensitivities, and I was telling you that I have stayed off whey. I've reintroduced it a couple of times, and I've had it very sporadically, and I haven't had any problems with it. But I certainly haven't gone back to eating it on a regular basis. But tell us a little bit about that, because I know some people are probably thinking, oh, if I have to eliminate this food, does this mean I can never eat it again?
So not necessarily. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find out what's the reason why you developed the food sensitivity to begin with. And usually it's because there's something going on with the gut. So the first thing is we need to heal the gut. So maybe it's a probiotic, or working with a dietitian and exploring what might have caused that. Sometimes if we're very stressed. So we heal the gut first. Then once we know the gut is healed, the foods that came up as the lowest or the least amount of sensitivity, those are the ones that we want to start with first. So we would do one, maybe like once a week. You would introduce it and then you would stop, and then maybe a week later do it again. And if you're able to have it without any kind of reactions, then we will move to the next one. So it's basically, we're going very slow and we're only bringing it in like once every week. So this way, because when we eat something, our body can react up to 48 hours after. So we want to make sure, we want to give the body time to see if we're going to react to it. And we want to give it time to completely clear out of our system again, and then bring it back in again. And if we continue to not feel any symptoms, because we will know at this point, now that we are aware of what we're sensitive to. So if our joints feel fine, if we're not developing any headaches, if our gut is feeling okay, then we could safely assume that we're doing good. Then we'll do another food that we are sensitive to, and we will continue to bring it back in slowly. And we will, work our way up to the ones that we've had the biggest reaction to. Now, the foods that we've had the highest reaction to, it depends on how long we've had that sensitivity. If it was ongoing for a very long time, there is a small possibility that we may not be able to bring that one back, but we won't know unless we give it a chance. So we would basically do the same thing. And if we are reacting to it after like sometime, maybe 6 months to a year later, we could give it a try again. But there is that possibility that the ones that we reacted the most to, we may not be able to, because our body has produced the most antibodies to react to it. So once that has happened, because the antibodies has a memory, so it's possible those we will not be able to bring back in.
Right. Yep. But you never know that. So, I think
Exactly,
until you try it, and you have repeated testing. And this is why I think this topic is so fascinating to me, is because it's really hard. It's like a puzzle. You almost have to be a detective. It's really hard when you might not react to something for 48 hours. I mean, think of what you've eaten in 48 hours. Now, how do you figure out, oh my God, what could it be? Right. So
right.
it's a lot of work on your part, along with the patient too, to try to narrow down what those issues are. And that's why food sensitivity testing to me is so amazing. It'll tell. And when I got my test back, I mean, the whey was like in the red. I forget if there's colors or not, but I'm just going to use that like that. It was in that column of most severe, which made perfect sense because I was getting the symptoms. Whereas the basil and the mushrooms were down like maybe the least, severe, very, very mild. And so it made perfect sense to me when I saw the results of the tests that it was very indicative of whether or not I was having a symptom or not.
Yes. Yeah. And also, like in ingredients, sometimes, like with dairy and wheys, like breadings, we never would think that dairy may be in a breading. And so we got, maybe we're out to dinner and we have a piece of chicken and there's some breading on it and there's dairy in it. And some restaurants, they even, the piece of, if it's chicken or meat, sometimes they will actually soak it in dairy because it's a natural meat tenderizer. And all suddenly we're reacting to it and, we're thinking, I didn't have any dairy, so why am I reacting to this? So
Right.
it could be hidden in so many different places.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's hard enough when you go to the grocery shopping and you try to figure out like reading the labels and all of that. I mean, pretty much everybody needs to go become a nutritionist to understand this, but forget going to a restaurant. I mean, it's tough. You almost have to ask a gazillion questions or be able to go to a place where that they're very sensitive to things like that. The chef is knowledgeable about food sensitivities and all that kind of stuff. So I want to move on to what I teased the audience with initially, and that you have a modality that can remove fat permanently while allowing the individual to still gain muscle. And I think that this is my doctoral program was actually on glucose and insulin metabolism in an elderly population. And we had to put them on a 6-month strength training program. And these people were able to gain muscle and lose fat, but it took a long time. And I think so many people today are struggling with weight loss, obesity, sarcopenia, the loss of muscle mass that puts you at high risk for falls and all of that. And this is, while I think many people probably will gravitate towards it because it's an aesthetic, like the idea of, oh, I can, lose body fat. I'm looking at it from the perspective of the way I'm going to look. It goes much deeper than that because this, as you wrote a great article for our Natural Nutmeg March issue on this whole concept. But what I think is amazing about this is just what it can do in terms of people who are suffering with a loss of muscle mass. So tell us all about the M Sculpt Neo.
Yeah, so the M Sculpt Neo just came out in October 2020. So we're very excited to be able to acquire this equipment. And what it does is it actually sends these magnetic energy fields to the targeted muscle groups, and it stimulates muscle contractions. And every couple seconds, it also sends this tapping where it actually breaks down the lactic acid. So this way, there isn't this buildup, because after we exercise, that burn that we feel, it's a buildup of lactic acid. So the Emsculpt Neo will send these contractions to the muscle, and it's very deep rooted. It actually goes really deep into the muscle. So this way, it contracts the muscle to a point that we cannot do it on our own. Even the most physically fit people who are exercising, they can't stimulate the muscle to contract to this degree. And because we're able to target the muscles that deeply, it actually will stimulate new muscle fibers. So this way, it makes the muscle stronger, and it helps to sculpt it. So that's why we're getting the aesthetic appearance. Now with the Emsculpt Neo, there's also this heat that is focused on the area at the same time. And this heat, it sort of feels like if you were to get one of those stone massages. So it feels really nice, but it actually breaks down these fat cells, which the body will naturally eliminate through through the lymphatic system. So we do this this procedure, and we're literally getting stronger. And it's recommended to do 4 treatments, 1 every week. So this way, after the 4 weeks, the muscle is continuing to grow. People can see results anywhere from like 3 to 6 months after, because it is stimulating it so deep down that this regeneration of the muscle fibers continue on shortly after the treatment. So people who may have suffered from like back issues, when we focus on making our core stronger, it makes our back stronger, and it helps eliminate a lot of that back pain. For people who have trouble moving around, so because everything stems to the core, the stronger the core is, it makes us stronger in if it's going upstairs, anything that's elevated, and because it's making us stronger, we feel stronger, and it encourages us to do more activity than we've had before, because sometimes we may not want to do certain activities because it's hard, and it makes us out of breath and it hurts. And so by doing this treatment, it actually helps get us ready for that kind of activity. So 4 treatments of the M Sculpt Neo is like doing like 12 to 16 weeks of HIIT exercises, which is like high intensity exercises. So we are actually able to do so much more just from this treatment.
So I think the question that everyone's thinking, at least the question I'm thinking right now, is what does it feel like?
Yes. So so the contractions, it feels like a pull on your muscles. So you do feel that. And it could be a little bit uncomfortable, but if you just let yourself relax, by the end of the treatment, it's not as uncomfortable. And so every couple seconds, as you're feeling this pullness, from the contractions, then you feel this tapping. And the tapping is when the lactic acid is being broke down. So it goes back and forth on that. And sometimes with the contractions, your feet will actually lift up a little bit because we're all connected to all of our muscles. But that's actually a positive thing because, it's working that deep. So it's not painful. After the 30 minutes, you're able to get up and go back to work or do whatever activities that you had planned for the day. So just a little bit of that uncomfortness, and that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's a 30-minute, the sessions are 30 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, once you get used to it, it's the 30 minutes really does go by fast.
Oh, I'm sure for the majority of people. I mean, I'm one of those wacky people that actually likes to exercise. hence, that's why I'm an exercise physiologist. But I'm sure for most people, it's basically like, hey, this is awesome. I will do this all day long, then have to go, take a HIIT class or have to do a million abdominal crunches or anything like that. So I want to get into more of the research on this and some of the things that we're seeing when we come back from our short break. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. When we come back, we'll be talking more with registered dietitian Jane Grant. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. I am talking today with Jane Grant, founder of Grant's Nutrition and Wellness in Berlin, Connecticut. Jane can be reached at www.grantsnutrition.com. And Jane is offering free consultations and mini demos of the M Sculpt Neo for anyone who is interested in a treatment package. You can reach out to her. So I was looking into this a little bit more, just to, your article that you had written, and looking at some of the research and stuff on this. It looks like some individuals are experiencing a 25% increase in muscle mass, a 30% decrease in fat mass, including up to 16% of visceral fat, the fat that's stored deep in the abdomen around abdominal organs. And those are some pretty amazing numbers, right?
Absolutely, yes. And that's what I love about this machine is that they actually did do clinical studies on it. So it's not a gimmick. It actually does work. And it also depends on the person. If you do this treatment and let's say you decide to continue with unhealthy eating habits, while this machine does have the ability to break fat cells down, but if you're going to eat unhealthy foods, you're almost working against that. So that's why results are, they're individualized. So if you're doing something like this and following healthy dietary habits, and after doing something like this, you're following up with some kind of exercise regimen, it doesn't have to be something as intense as like the HIIT workout, but doing something to continue to to maintain the muscle mass is going to be very important. You're going through this procedure and you want it to last. So, and that's, why they keep on saying, this is not a weight loss program, but it could definitely help you lose weight. And that's how we're looking at it, as a tool to help people lose weight, help remove those fat cells from, permanently, because what happens is, in general, when people do lose weight, those fat cells, they shrink, but they're still there. And because they're still there, that's why people have a hard time maintaining the weight loss, is because when we have those fat cells there, they're starved. So it makes it hard to maintain smaller eating habits. And that's why slowly we start, our portion sizes get bigger again, and people will regain the weight back on. That's one of the reasons. Obviously, if we just go back to unhealthy eating habits because we lost the weight, we're going to put the weight on. But for those people who are want to permanently keep this weight off and is really trying hard, and sometimes they're struggling and put the weight back on. This particular machine, because it's eliminating these fat cells, it helps the probability of keeping that weight off permanently, with a healthy lifestyle and with regular exercising. Because exercise, even with this machine, even though it's stimulating the muscles, really deep, and it is creating new muscle fibers, if you don't use the muscle, it will go away, and that's why, we've lost our muscle to begin with. And that's why we're looking for something like this. And, and these studies, they're just absolutely, wonderful. And they've shown, the visceral fat level coming down, and it's that visceral fat that puts us at risk for, heart disease and diabetes. And, the thought of something like this can actually help reduce our risk to these different diseases is just, it's amazing. And we want to, back it up with good eating habits so it doesn't come back, because it can.
Right. Yeah. The body's amazing. I mean, I've always found metabolism fascinating, and, being an exercise physiologist, obviously I'm very focused on my career, and my doctoral training is focused on exercise. Right. And so when I realized that, weight loss is really, I'm going to say 90% of what goes in your mouth and maybe 10% of exercise. And I have to tell people, you can't out exercise McDonald's or, overeating or whatever. You just can't do it. Right. It kills me as an exercise physiologist because I want to give more credit to the exercise part, but it's just, exercise should really be looked at as maintenance of what you're doing and kind of an additive help support, but not the main focus. So the main focus is really, what are you eating? How much are you eating? What are your portion sizes? All of that kind of thing. And the whole fat cell thing to me is just fascinating in terms of what you were saying, typically once they're there to stay. And it makes perfect sense when you think about it. And when you think of them as little organisms in and of themselves, and when you've lost weight, so they shrink, but they're still there, but their mechanics are still there. And so they're wanting to feed themselves. Like you said, they're starved, basically. It makes perfect sense why people who have been overweight lose a bunch of weight. And then all of a sudden the weight kind of gradually comes back on, even if they're still being pretty disciplined about what they're doing, because the body's almost tricking you to want to get back to that weight, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And it's because those fat cells are there. And, and it could be like little things that we do that we don't even realize, maybe like while we're cooking, we're tasting this, we're tasting that. And it's really the littlest things that we do that makes the biggest impact. So, and before we know, the weight is coming on and we don't understand. And it's, but we're doing these little things because our fat cells are saying, I want to eat.
Yep. Well, it really goes back to, I guess, sort of like our primitive physiology, right? When we were more of a fight or flight species, and our body wants to store fat because it's thinking it's protecting us, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And, our body still has that mentality. And then some of us just naturally have more fat cells than others. And some of us have bigger fat cells than others. So, so already from a genetic standpoint, we have that against us. So that's why, like, all this, put it all together can benefit us in so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to reiterate, it's you recommend 4 sessions.
Yes.
And they're 30 minutes a session. And then what happens after that?
Yep. So we will offer maintenance packages. So depending on the person, like 1 session once a month, if the person feels that they need it. So everyone is going to be in a different kind of position. So someone who is, let's say, very athletic, like you yourself, and has good eating habits, maybe the four treatments, the one package is all you're going to need, because you already have all these great habits put in place and you'll be able to maintain it just fine.
I just want to see some ripped abs.
There you go. There you go. That can happen. So for other people who maybe are not as conditioned as you, may need a little additional help to maintain what they've got, while they're trying to establish better eating habits, while they're trying to establish the good exercise habits. So with the maintenance plan, that will be individualized. That is something that we will work with each person on. Some people maybe would only need it once every 3 months. So maybe they have a good exercise habit put in place and good eating habits, but are just feeling that it makes them feel more secure about having that maintenance plan just for a little bit, just to make sure to maintain it. So like I said, it is very individualized. And
yeah. Right. I'm sure. I was just trying to get a general idea. Is this more for someone who, let's say, just needs to lose? I'm just going to throw out random numbers here, like somebody who maybe just needs to lose like 25 to 30, 40 pounds, or would it be appropriate for someone who is very obese and needs to lose over 100 pounds?
So this particular device is good for people with a BMI of 35 or below. Anyone with a BMI over 35, unfortunately, the magnetic fields won't penetrate the muscle, or it won't go through as deep. So they won't benefit as much for it. So it would be better for them to lose some weight before they do this. But ideally, it's for someone with a BMI 35 or less.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That kind of makes more sense for sure. So this is fascinating. I mean, and like you said, I said in one of the breaks, you're offering some free consultations and mini demos of the M Sculpt Neo for anybody who's interested in a treatment package. And obviously this is for people that live in Connecticut, although I wouldn't be surprised if somebody flew to see you.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Anything else that I didn't cover on the M Sculpt Neo that you think is important for people to know?
No, just with our packages, we do have a medical grade body composition machine where we are going to be utilizing that before people start with their packages, and then 3 months after. This way, so they could visually see the difference. I mean, we will be able to see the difference, by looking in a mirror, but sometimes by having hard data on paper is very helpful. And another benefit too is that sometimes from weight loss or from having children, this device can help tighten the skin up a little bit. If we have like excess skin, it may not be able to eliminate all that, but it can help tighten some of that up, which is an added benefit.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm sure people are excited to hear about that too. Awesome. So we have a couple minutes before we go to our last break. I wanted to talk about, I think other people would be fascinated to know your opinion and expertise on what I'm going to call some are fad diets. Some are actually, recommended diets, I think. But even though we've talked a lot about individuality and genetics and things like that, I think it's important I'd love to get your opinion and your experience on things like the keto diet, intermittent fasting, plant-based diet. So what do you like? What do you not like?
Yeah. So I do like the plant-based diet. A lot of people, when they hear plant-based diet, they think it's almost like a vegetarian type diet, which is not. A plant-based diet is including like 10 to 12 servings of plant-based foods in the diet, and they may still have like a chicken breast. So that is okay. That is a very good diet because we're providing a lot of nutrients. We're providing whole foods into our diet, and it's very high in fiber. And it tends to help reduce inflammation, which would help potentially prevent or even reverse diabetes, heart disease. Definitely helps maintain adequate or more of an average weight. So that one is a very good diet. There's intermittent fasting. Now, it's not for everyone. Some people do better, eating small meals throughout the day, especially if you're a more athletic type of person. But then there are some people that are actually do better with an intermittent fasting, where they only eat within an 8-hour period, because their body doesn't metabolize the nutrients as well. So it gives their system the chance to break everything down, clear out the system. And with the gut, so our gut goes through two functions. It's one, the digestive process, but then the second part is it actually has a motor miter contraction ability, which it won't do if we're digesting. And
that sounds fascinating. I want to get into more of that. We're going to go to a short break right now. This is the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. I am talking today to Jane Grant. She is the founder of Grant's Nutrition and Wellness in Berlin, Connecticut. And you can learn more about her at www.grantsnutrition.com. So before we went to break, we were talking about just different types of diets: keto, intermittent fasting, plant-based diet. You had started to tell us a little bit about what happens with intermittent fasting. One question I wanted to ask you, though, before you go back to that is, when we're talking about intermittent fasting, I think there's a lot of confusion as to how to do it. I feel like people ask me all the time, like, oh, should it be 8 hours? Should it be 4 hours? Should it be 12? Like, how do you decide what that window should be?
Yes. So there's a few ways you could do intermittent fasting. One of the more popular ways is what they call the 16-8. So it's where you're fasting for 16 hours and you eat within an 8-hour window. There's been clinical studies showing that if you do this 16-8, or if you fast for 20 hours and eat within a 4-hour window, or if you eat once a day, the benefits are all the same. There's one way of doing it is not better than the other, as of right now, according to clinical studies. So when I work with someone who's going to be doing the intermittent fasting, we decide on how we're going to go about it based on the person, and what makes sense to them.
And their lifestyle, I'm sure, like what kind of a job do they have and timing and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yes. And so one of the reasons why intermittent fasting was looked at is because for some time now, it was recommended that people eat small meals throughout the day. And that was for everyone. It didn't matter, lifestyle, body type. It was what was supposed to be the healthy way of eating. But what has happened is that it didn't work for everyone. So people who would normally eat like once a day or twice a day, who would turn around and change the way they ate to accommodate the multiple small meals throughout the day, what was happening is they started gaining weight. And even though maybe the calories was the same, their body just didn't respond to it as well. So that's why these studies started coming out on the intermittent fasting and looking at, well, why, why are these people, gaining weight? Why is it that it works for some and not for others? So what it is that our body just doesn't digest our food as quick as some as others. And because of that, because it takes time for our body to process everything, it was causing people to gain weight, because instead of our bodies utilizing the nutrients for energy, because we were just constantly filling it up, the body was just absorbing it as fat. So that's why by giving it time to clear out and making sure there's nothing in the system, when the person would eat, it gave them the opportunity to use the nutrients for energy instead of just being stored for fat.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. And again, we keep coming back to, it's all individualized, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All individualized.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last one, tell us what you think about the keto diet.
Okay. So the keto. Yes. So the keto, as most of us know, it's recommended to eat 70% fat, 20% protein, 10% carbohydrates. And maybe some of those numbers vary a little bit depending on what we've read out there. But basically, it's mostly fat, moderate amount of protein, and very little carbohydrates. So I don't care for this diet because what people don't realize is that we need all three macronutrients: carbohydrates, proteins, and healthy fats. And there's only two nutrients that will actually pass through the brain barrier. And one of them is ketones. So that's why, like with the keto diet, it's supposed to help put you in ketosis so you produce these ketones. So the ketones will pass through the brain barrier, but it only feeds 60% of the brain. So now people who are doing the keto diet, at some point, some sooner than others, will start feeling this brain fog. At some point, it does disrupt their energy levels. They start having focus, concentration issues. And over time, it can actually start causing like depression and anxiety, and where maybe they were never prone to that. And it's just because the brain is not being fully, it's not receiving all the nutrients that it needs. Now, the other nutrient that will feed the brain is carbohydrates. And once the carbohydrate is broken down, it does feed the brain 100%. So we want to focus on healthy carbs, but we do need the carbohydrates in our diet, mainly for brain health. And then the second reason why we want carbohydrates is, so it is the body's preferred source of fuel. So in our muscle, the definition that we're all trying to strive for, we get that when we have adequate amounts of carbohydrate in our diet. So some people, they get up in the morning and they go out and they exercise, before they even have breakfast. So when a person does that, the body is going to start breaking down muscle to fuel that workout. And after 15 to 20 minutes of working out, the body will start breaking down fat. But just like when we ingest fat, it breaks down slowly. When we're trying to use it for energy, it breaks down slow. So we continue to break down muscle. And for every 1 pound of fat that we're able to break down for energy, we'll end up breaking down 3 pounds of muscle. So before we work out, we do want to have some kind of healthy carbohydrate. Even if it's a banana, I like to recommend a banana a lot because of the potassium, which is really good for muscle contractions. But you want like maybe a banana and a yogurt. So this way your body has the carbohydrates and it won't use the muscle to break down.
Right. And that's actually the last thing we want. It's hard enough maintaining the muscle as we get older as it is. The last thing we want is for the body to be breaking down. I get it. So we could talk for hours about this, but we are out of time. But I want to thank you so much, Jane, for being with us today and all this amazing information that you gave us. Jane's the founder of Grant's Nutrition and Wellness in Berlin, Connecticut, and her website again is www.grantsnutrition.com. So thank you so much for being with us today, Jane.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I want to thank everyone for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific. Next time on the show, we'll be discussing more about the power of thoughts and beliefs and the impact they have on your life. Have a great week, and I'll see you back here next time. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.